Welcome to Blender add-on development for beginners. In this bonus video, we briefly discuss the pros and cons of using an external IDE. You don't need this to develop add-ons, although it can be useful, but feel free to skip to the first video in the next module. You can always revisit this later if you want. Up till now, we have been using Blender's built-in editor, and although quite powerful, you might be wondering if other editors or IDEs even, like PyCharm or VS Code, might be better alternatives. In my opinion they are, especially for more complex add-ons. But consider this. Everybody has access to the built-in editor, and it is the same for everybody, so we are all on the same page and we don't need to look at things that might be slightly different in other editors. It is also quite powerful. It has syntax highlighting and it can execute the code. This is probably all you need for simple add-ons that consists of a single Python file. You can even synchronize the text block with an external file, so no need to explicitly save and reload if you want to store it outside of a blend file. But IDEs are convenient for complex add-ons with multiple files. They are easy to integrate with version management and come with powerful language features like type checking and linting, plus all kinds of options to automate various tasks. But it takes some work to set type checking up correctly for Blender's bundled modules, and also Blender's unconventional use of annotations for properties clashes with type checking. These IDEs are also typically not really free. They are free to use and perhaps even largely open source, but they are still owned by large corporations who want to profit from you. So for example, in VS Code, I find there is a consistent push to use AI, something we all have to pay for eventually. Now you might not find that a problem, or you might switch to a truly open source variant like VS Codium, but these truly free variants often come with less features. So in the end, it is up to you, of course. If you just start out and don't have a particular editor preference already, use Blender's built-in text editor. You can always switch later. If you are fond of a specific editor that is not a full IDE, perhaps Notepad++, Vim, Kate or Emacs, just to name a few, by all means use that one. Those offer most of the benefits of an IDE, including version management, working with many files, etc., without being tied to a mega corporation. In this series, I will continue to use the built-in text block editor in the demonstrations, even though behind the screens I use VS Code to manage all the code, scripts, etc., just to keep it simple for everybody. This may perhaps change later when we cover more complex issues or multi-file add-ons, but for now it will do nicely. To illustrate some of the issues I mentioned earlier, let me show you what you need to develop add-ons using Visual Studio Code. I have chosen Visual Studio Code because that's what I use, but the steps will be similar in other IDEs. I am assuming here that you have Python and the Python language server installed. If not, you need to do that first. Simply go to extensions and search for Python. But of course, if you're using VS Code, I guess you know that already. Let's first create a new folder. And then add a Python file. When we type in our first line of code, we immediately see the problem. The module isn't recognized, so we need to install it. So let's do that. Best practice is to create a virtual environment for this, and that is pretty straightforward in VS Code. Click the Python icon and then click venv. We select Quick Create because we only have one version of Python installed locally on this machine, and we don't need any of the standard packages. That the local version of Python is slightly newer than the one bundled with Blender is not a big problem. We will only run the add-on inside Blender anyway. Once the environment is created, we can open a new terminal, and as you can see from the prompt, we are inside the virtual environment automatically. That means we can install packages without messing with those installed on our local machine already. And now we need the bpy module and its friends. So a logical assumption would be that you need to install the bpy package. You could do that, but that would install a complete version of Blender, albeit without a user interface. So yeah, we can start Blender from Python, and that is very useful in its own right, but overkill for what we need. So instead, we install the fake-bpy module. This module contains no actual code, so it's lightweight, but it does provide stub implementations for everything, so VS Code can do autocomplete, type checking, and give pop-up help. After installing it, PPY is still not recognized, but that is because we need to restart the language server so it can find the new package. So we right-click in the file, select the command palette, and look for Restart Language Server. And voila, the red squiggle is replaced by a brown one. But brown is just a warning, because we don't use the module in any code yet. We now have autocomplete options too. For example, context active object or location. Location gets a red squiggle, so let's see why. Location is not a known attribute of none, which makes sense because if we hover over the active object attribute, we see that this can be none. So probably we should check for this, although in an actual operator we might take care of this in a poll method. This is all the configuration you need. Just remember you cannot execute this code outside of Blender. If you ever need a more complete setup suitable for automated testing and debugging and version management, then check the link in the description to a repository I created with a lot of helpful info and tools. I want to show one final thing. Let's build a minimal operator with a single property. We need the operator class and an int property, but when we define the property, VS Code thinks we have an error. This is because the Pyland's type checker assumes that type annotation should only be used for static type checking and not for anything else, like describing runtime behavior as we do for Blender's properties. This is unfortunate and I don't agree, but if you want to know more, see the link in the description. We can, however, simply suppress this error by adding a comment with type:ignore. This will remove the squiggly line while still providing us with the option to see all parameters of the int property when we hover over it. So are there advantages to using an external IDE? Certainly, you get type checking and autocomplete and information when you hover over something, and extra like version management integration. But it's also a bit of a hassle to configure and you still need to execute your code inside Blender. For me, it's certainly worth it, but it is completely up to you, of course. In the next module, we continue to use Blender's own text block editor so that everybody will be on the same page, but that might change once we start developing add-ons which need multiple files, for example. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.